Okay, time to get back onto these cranks here. I'll start on this one because it's the closest one to being ready to go. So this is out of the 46 motor, as I recall. Alright, so this one I didn't take it apart except for the left wheel, so I just got to put the left wheel together and get it all back together here and true it up and make it like new, like it should be. Right now we're using this transmission case here to as a holding fixture. Actually works pretty good. So do that. Free up here so I can move it. Alright. This is our shaft. Wipe it down with a clean rag and get it cleaned up. Make sure there's nothing wrong on the bearing surfaces. Here's our other flywheel. Bad taper in this one. See what they chattered the piss out of it in there. Okay, we can see it hopefully. Yeah, it's nice and chattery in there. Genuine S&S quality. Couldn't ask for better. Just read their advertisements. Okay, first thing I do is take that back off to lube the bearings better. So we use a screwdriver just to hold the bearing cage down. The rod comes right up. Looks like they got fairly decent amount of lube in there right now, but I'm going to put a little bit more in there. Just to make sure it's good enough. Doesn't hurt to have too much. You don't want the lube is on the taper where your Loctite has to set up. So wipe that off. First a dirty rag, then a clean rag. Get your fingers on it, make sure it feels good. Okay. The rod's on, so that's the right wheel, so this would be the rear rod, the front rod. If you had it like that, that'd be the front and the rear. That's not how they're supposed to be. Fork rod goes in the back. If the bearings are all the way in, it should just go right on down. Linty old rag. Alright. Out of the way. Pulling the other rod, the other side here. These early shafts, they got a long taper and a short taper. The long taper goes in the flywheel, the short one goes in the motor sprocket. If you do it wrong, it doesn't fit very well, see? Do it correctly, see it fits nice and tight. Alright, we're going to use a little sleeve retainer and a little red. Sleeve retainer goes on the taper and the red goes on the thread. Just put a little bit on there like that. Smear it on there Keep it toward, don't get it right on the edge of the taper because that'll shove it all the way onto the into the surface where you don't want it to be. You only want it to be on the part that goes in the flywheel. You want a bunch of excess going into the top of the bearing surface. On this side it doesn't really matter because we're wiping it down. On that side over there we got a rod. You don't want the Loctite in the rod bearings. They don't work very good when you lubricate your bearings with Loctite. It's kind of bad for them actually. So put some good amount of Loctite on your threads. Stick it in there. The Loctite's going to fill up the voids of the bad part there a little bit. Now when you go to put the nut on there, there's a little bit of a shoulder on this side, and it's rounded on this side, radius. So the flat spot goes against the flywheel, not the air. A lot of people put them on backwards for some reason. Okay. So I get all my sockets lined up here now. I can organize my workbench finally. So I got all my sockets back there. Where'd my light go? There we go. So the 3/4 drive is way in the back. 1/2 inch 12 points here, 1/2 inch 6 points are in the front. I got my tall stuff here, and I got my stud pullers I use all the time right there. And then over here we got all our weird sockets. Those are for sensors, compression releases, and weird stuff, and real tall stuff I don't need too often. Okay, so I need a 3/4 drive. I need something probably about this size would be a guess. And I guessed wrong. I'll go with another one. Nope. So S&S uses a lot bigger nuts than stock Harley does. There we go, 1.25 inches. Yeah, normally that's a 1 1/16 on stock nuts, I think. Stock nuts would be on this one over here, the Taiwan Teddy crank. See the difference here? It fits, see? A lot smaller. The bigger diameter nut, the bigger the flange is for it to push against, the more it's going to hold it straight and flat. Big nuts are good. Small nuts, not so much. Unless you have a clearance problem. Okay, use my zip gun. So I use my 1/2 incher here. That's for torquing, not for this. 1.25 inches is a black one. After a 3/4 drive. This is for torquing, this is for assembly. Do not trust your torque wrench for torquing. It does torque pretty good, but don't trust it. Especially a cheap gun. That's enough. I can actually strip it out if I go tight enough, but we have a torque wrench for that. That doesn't work very well. Torque wrench is too big to get out easily. There we go, there's a torque wrench. 3/4 drive. Takes the big socket. There you go. See, that's the difference between an air impact and a torque wrench. Torque wrench is a lot longer. See? This goes up to 600 pounds. This one goes to 600 pounds too, but you don't know exactly what you're doing with it. So we go with the one that we actually know what it does. Okay, we're going to use the semi-dirty rag here. Okay, so now this has to go in the press so I can hold it. Let's go over here. Okay, my press is too wide for the flywheel to go in here, so I could not find my old angle plates here I had made. So we got new ones. Those ones I only used for 25 years or better, so now I got new ones. So see, now the flywheel will be held in here correctly. When you put pressure here, it doesn't rotate, and you get a good torque with it. Now if you put the nut on this side, you got to lift up. If you put the nut on this side, you go down. I always like going with Mother Nature, not against it. So I'm going to go over here. So all you got to do now is just put pressure on it to hold it, and it will not rotate. fighting over here my drip tray. It's my cheap drip tray from home. So you go like that. There's a couple tons of pressure. I'll have to come back and hit it before I do it because it bleeds down. Okay, now we need our torque wrench, which we have right here, and we torque the snot out of it. Now, factory torque on this nut is probably something around 100 pounds, maybe. Not very much. I doubt if it goes to 125 stock. You can basically only go about 125 with stock nuts. They start stripping about that. Okay, so we got the hone over, got the press over here in my way. Okay, there's a little pressure on that. Make sure we're on 0 here so I know how much I'm torquing. Make sure I clear everything like I'm supposed to. I came up on torque pretty quick. Okay, we're pulling 250 with it. Because S&S allows you to get good torque. They got good shafts, good nuts, and good flywheels, so you can torque them pretty good. So you can see how the torque wrench goes. It goes a little over 200. Flywheel slipping right now because the pressure went down. This is really hard to do with one hand because everything is in the way. Okay, put pressure back on that. You have to move this over to here. Okay, I can get a little bit more I can go on this before it bottoms out. So 200s are out here, 300s over there. So you can see how you go right to 250 pretty easy. 250 on that little small nut is plenty of torque. So that's how you do that. Just release this, get out of the way. Yeah, I'll go back over to here. Now when I go to torque the Taiwan Teddy flywheel over here, this one, there's no way I can torque them anywhere near that kind of numbers. These flywheels will just collapse in there on the taper, so it won't allow the torque to come up. The shafts might take it, but the threads start pulling on the shafts a little bit, and the nuts are really soft, so we'll start pulling the threads out of those. So those I'd be lucky to get 175 out of. This one, being good stuff, we went 250. So comparison, the crank pin nut up here, stock Harley torques 175 to 200, depending on what year it is. The Evo's around 200. And I think the highest I've ever seen was 225 in one of the Harley books, or that S&S said something like that. Someone did. But I can pull these things to 400, 450 if you got good parts. And on my race bike, like this kind of stuff, I'll pull 500 on them. Try to keep them straight. Okay, I'm going to leave this here, and I'm going to have to change out my socket because we're no longer going to use this one. We have to go to a different one. Tight quarters, not good for videotaping. Alright, back over here. Alright, this should be an 1.5 inch nut. It is. This is basically a Dash 83 Harley nut for an Evo. This is big large diamond ones like these. That's pretty much what they use. Okay, so this one we do the same thing, except we definitely want to make sure the Loctite does not get anywhere into the bearings. You only go about halfway up the taper with Loctite, no extra. Otherwise you can have a problem. This one over here, we go ahead and wipe it down, make sure there's no Loctite on this, just to make sure. Clean out the taper, make sure it's clean, and we're good to go. Alright, also make sure you don't put Loctite in the hole. You can tighten it down. Now the hole's on the other side on this one, so I don't have to worry about it on this one. little bit right there. I just smeared around on half the taper on this half. So I don't put any extra on that. They put so you can see how the Loctite ends about right here. Taper goes all the way up to here over here. You can also see the old mark right there where the Loctite had a gap on it. Because you chew up the flywheels, the taper, and things will twist a little bit and uncover a low spot. So that's what happened here. That was actually not even, that part of the taper was not even being used. So when you chew a flywheel, that's what they move around on you. You don't get 100% contact anymore with tapers. That's why the flywheels will shift on you if you don't have enough torque on them, because you're not using the whole taper. So you gotta make sure you tighten them up good and tight. The tighter you can tighten your hardware, the truer it will be, and stay true. It won't be true, it'll stay true. But the problem is, when you go to true it, it takes more effort to true it, so it's actually harder work. So the better job you do, the harder it is to do the job. Okay, put a little single lube right here. If you do actually get a little bit of Loctite over in that area, that should stop it from doing anything, hopefully, but you don't want any Loctite near that area anyway. The biggest thing is lubricated now, so when the bike starts up, it's not going to run dry. Okay, if you put this straight up and down, they just go right together like that. You don't have to go hunting around to find a taper. Go ahead and start your nut. Some nuts have interference fit, like this one here stops there, but it kind of goes. Other ones they just tie it all the way in there. They're interference thread all the way. So there's a trade-off between being a tight thread and a wrong thread. You have to know the difference. Okay, so to keep the flywheel, to tighten the flywheel true as you can initially, turn it 90 degrees. Your table should be flat, and tighten it that way. And it should stay pretty close to being flat. But if you torque on it, it will twist. The way you check it is you put it straight across here and see if it has a high and a low spot on it. So straight is missing right now, but we just take this. So here's the difference. It's not flat. So right now the crank is twisted a little bit. Now you can go try to true this in truing stand right now and get it trued up a little bit, or you can retighten this up a little differently. So right now this one here is low. This one's high. When you torque the nut, it should make it go that direction. So I'm going to try tightening that more. See if that corrects my problem. And that's just the problem. So now when you put it on your 90 degrees, nope, there it is, it's back again. Nope, still there. Check the one way it was gone, but this way it's still there. What you can get out of that gun. It's closer, but it's still a little bit out. See? So you can either try to get it better, or you can go just try to true it up like that. So down here it's flatter. That's weird. Oh, okay. That's different. When you check it right here, 45 degree, you got the air. And you check it further over here, so you don't have it at 90 degree. There's 90. You have a little bit. Should be the worst at 90. It's actually not that bad right there. Over here, look at that. That's real bad, but right here, you barely feel it. That's weird. It's like the flywheels aren't round. That's kind of weird. Yeah, I'm going to leave it like that. The wheels must be kind of bowed like this or something. That's weird. You move it over 1 inch and it takes out 3/4 of your air. That's kind of stupid. Okay, so now I need 1.5 inch nut. It should be this big boy one right here. Yep. Okay, so now I'll go over the press and we're going to tighten this up in the press. So make sure you got inflow here too. We do have inflow. Okay, because that'll close up a little bit. Okay, we'll be back.